Okay. What did I have? I want to test something before I get started. Did I just make it test? Oh, I just did Nightbot. I basically just want to get my overlay here working on my OBS so that I have kind of a record of chat on stream. It, it is communicating it, but I don't see it. I guess I'll remake the widget force thing. Browser? Uh-huh. Okay. Try that again. Oh, I might see what my original problem is. I have it behind all my video sources. Oh, I see it. Itty bitty for some reason. Do some fancy dancy cropping. Rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Ah, now we're getting somewhere. Make it, if I can make it light mode here. Oh. Oh. That's a thing. Alright. Test again. Alright, awesome. You know what, it being kind of a opaque square, it works. Not necessarily what I want, but I don't really like spending time fiddling with this. I don't have to. I crop this down so it's a little easier for me to deal with. Can sort of favor or give a little more room on this side of my camera, just to sort of have that blanked space. There is opacity, but that also impacts the text. Remember, I figured this out once. Curd. White. Unfortunately, this isn't really something I can do off screen. Oh, it cleared it again. Okay, try that. Alright, okay. Somewhere. I don't think I can do a color without it going to. Without it being completely opaque. Ooh, they have an opacity slider. Oh. Alright, try that. I'll clear it again. Interesting that the text not pitch black. Rather it be. Alright, one more time. Should do it. Well, not really. X stroke? Right? Cleared it? Nope. Enable custom font? You know what? For all intents and purposes, I guess what I can do is just make the a little more opaque. There's nothing really going on that side. That's just where I put my screws. Yeah, it is what it is. It's legible. Alright, so for today, I'm going to be taking this junk ESIXL, parts only. I'm going to be putting it in this shell. Before I get started on this shell, I'm actually going to put, or before I get started on this parts console, I'm going to put this shell together. This is just an empty shell. Came fresh off my cleaning, so it doesn't have the shoulder buttons, SD card slot, or anything in it. So usually when I do my sort of broad scope cleaning, I usually do end up missing spots, or spots are a little tougher than what I'm usually expecting. Just part of it. I do a very, like, sort of a broad cleaning. I submerge these in hot soapy water and then I hit it with a toothbrush, but I'm kind of going pretty quickly through all of these just to kind of get the big stuff off of it. This one actually looks like it did pretty good. As you can kind of already see, the shell's not in the best of shape. There's some pretty deep scratches right here. And I kind of go through with a wetted Q-tip and hit all the spots that are usually missed or maybe require just a little more attention. Looks like this one cleaned up pretty good. So I am missing this little piece of foam. This is for the Wi-Fi card. And they just, those are the only real pieces that fall off during the cleaning process. You'd think that all these other foam pads would as well, but usually almost always this one that falls off. Sometimes I have to reinforce or really stick it down with double-sided tape. This one felt pretty tacky, so that one falls out, then I'll go grab some tape. So this is the battery cover I'm going to use that needs to be cleaned manually. I'm going to worry about that later. I'm going to start grabbing components for the bottom shell here. Need one of these. Them. Have to look through these to pick one that I want. And I think my actual button assemblies are in my little tackle box. Left shoulder and the right shoulder. What I need to do is look at the shell, and I'm going to kind of pick shoulder buttons that are in similar condition. Since this rear shell is pretty beat up, I'm going to try and find shoulder buttons that are also somewhat beat up. Isn't exactly in horrible shape. We'll get ones that are like, little iffy looking, but nothing crazy. Mm, a little too good looking. Guessing these two shoulder buttons came from the same console, considering they have the same damage on them. Mm, I would say this is maybe a little too much damage. I go for ones that have a little less damage. This one would probably be pretty good, and maybe I can find the other one. Oh, that one's looking really good. Where is the R button? Okay, yeah, I'd say those two are pretty good. Then I need to grab the volume buttons, which kinda could probably grab good looking ones. These buttons are small enough that they can usually avoid a lot of damage. Some better than others, but I feel they don't express damage as much as the shoulder buttons do, considering where the shoulder buttons are. I think those volume buttons are good. Membrane, and then I need the two pieces that go over the shoulder button hardware. And then I need to grab a style or a SD card cover of a comparable damage. Now I've noticed with these Burgundy consoles, they almost have two different textures to the back shell. I don't know just what happened within the assembly process or the manufacturing process of these shells, but I take it out of the light to look at it. Especially when I choose out battery covers. You could have two Burgundy ones that look just a little different. Okay, so I have everything here. I'm just gonna quickly give everything a quick wipe down. I don't do anything really special with these buttons when it comes to cleaning them. I have them in a big bag with all the other buttons, and I just let them sort of steep in hot water. I only wait until now to really hand clean them. Because trying to hand clean everything is really annoying. Sort of the intention of the seeping is to just let it knock away some of the big stuff, and then just anything that remains I can get before I install them. And I'm just dipping my Q-tips in distilled water. Buttons are in pretty good shape, so I don't need to worry. Some of my more damaged, cosmetically speaking, buttons are take a little bit more effort to clean up. Now typically I'll just assemble these bottom shells, and then just have them ready to put consoles together with, but I'm doing this now as to sort of knock two birds out with one stone. I'll usually just put in this, or put together this lower assembly, put the shell pieces together, and then stick it in my great box of assembled shells. Got the volume buttons and the little membrane to kind of hold them a little better. These are pretty tiny buttons, especially when I'm trying to get the edges. I don't have much to hold on to. And I quickly them with a toothbrush just to knock away anything a Q-tip couldn't get. Okay. Plop those into their place. Now, before I do anything too crazy, I'm going to sort of give these little buttons a flush. I have to get more rubbing alcohol. What I'm going to be putting in here is 91%. I personally like 91. It stays around a little longer. Doesn't immediately evaporate like 99 tends to do. Do need to get a new syringe. This one's starting to fall apart. Come on, syringe. Right. So basically what I'll just do is just merge the button and then just press it 2 times. Try and flush the button out as best I can. I've noticed that this will mostly work if the button is just dirty. Not going to repair it if it's actually damaged, but if there's just like corrosion building up on the underside of the button or something preventing it from making contact, just having it submerged in rubbing alcohol and just pressing it a bunch of times, I noticed it tends to fix it. I'll do that for the other button. Just the whole thing submerged and then just press it a bunch. Okay, those will dry up pretty quickly. That aside. Go ahead and stick the volume back in. I'm just gonna get it real quick. Okay, looks good. Okay, now I can start putting together the card slot area. I'm gonna wipe off this real quick. And for the stylus slot, I'll wipe this out as well. Since this isn't an external part, don't really have to clean it that hard. Right, left. Okay, now I need to get the actual hardware. I have over here. What I need is 2 springs and 2 pivots or posts or Spring has a little bit of rust on it. Wipe it off. It's not perfect. I'll have the slightly rusted side be the button end, as it will not be contacting metal. It never contacts metal, actually, but a little ahead of myself here. Lower the button down. And put in the spring and the pivot. Okay, now these little hardware covers. Now screws. I'll just stick with bolt screws all the way around. Two more. And just giving the shoulder buttons a little bit of a test. Yeah, feel and sound good. So I'll put that shell aside. Since I am thinking about it, I'm going to quickly wipe down this battery cover that I intend to use. One's actually in pretty good shape. Since the since like the mid fingers of your right hands are over these battery covers, the consoles are assembled, these things usually turn pretty gross. A lot of nice nooks and crannies for things to grow and collect. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I can finally turn my attention to the parts console. Okay, right here. I'm not sure what's wrong with this, so this should be interesting. Ugh, got a line of gunk right there on the bottom screen. The top camera is like completely obscured. Can't say I've ever seen that before. Huh? Yeah, the lens piece is still there. Huh, it's just gross. This wasn't leaving anything on my Q-tip when I cleaned it. Okay, power button. No response. Let's see what I'm working with back here. Battery, it's a little bloated. Let me grab a known good, or at least known charged battery. It is not so bloated. See what happens when I turn this on. Hang on. Turn off my lights real quick. The top screen is a little more red. I'm gonna quickly factory reset it so I don't have to look at some random kid. Version 1.4.1. Ah, got parental locks. Now this can be conquered fairly easily. There's a couple different websites you can go to that sort of have parental lock cracking tools for a lot of Nintendo consoles. So for this one, the tool that I at least have the easiest access to, I can't actually say it's the best. We set it to today's date, is the 22nd of 24. And I'll go over to my parental controls. Yes, I forgot. Ugh, I need that number. Oh, I'm gonna have to go through that again. I forgot. Okay. Plug in the confirmation tool, or the confirmation number into the tool. And I get the reset code of 43801. Voila, clear settings, yes. Now I can format the system memory. So this is unusual. I don't know what's wrong with this console, but obviously it turns on just fine. It opens applications. I'm guessing charger, or maybe they just faulted it because it couldn't turn on. They didn't have a charger. Maybe the battery is bad, so when they plugged in the charger, it didn't work. There's a few things I can speculate. I'm gonna turn back on my lights. I would say both the screen and the lens are in fairly decent shape. They need to be cleaned, obviously, but I just need the... I think I could probably reuse both of these, which is very unusual. Usually I'm having to replace one, or having to replace both. Initial setup doesn't matter. Throw in random garbage. Later. Okay. Okay. Okay, there's just a few points in... Ah. Charge port's bad. That explains it. Get rid of my battery. Don't accidentally mix it up. I'll just keep the good one nearby. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take apart. Dribble some IPA over the covers. carefully pop them off. And whew, okay. The rear ones. Okay, I never checked to see if there was any treasures in here. Oh, well. Ooh, wonder why this one kind of slipped on me. Rusted. It should be fine. It's the same. Hmm. Not been close. Screw cover stickers. Good job. Okay. See what I'm working with here. It would appear I'm the first one in here. Okay, I'm just gonna go through the full disassembly and then I'll do a charge port replacement, which will hopefully be a little more smoother than the last time I did this. Should be. But I'll take all the screws out of the power board. Remove these pieces of tape from the factory. Gotta kind of be careful where I'm pulling these. I don't want to accidentally rip the little latches off of these connectors. Ooh, come on. This is what I usually replace with Kapton tape. For some reason, Nintendo thought they were important enough. Okay. Card, microphone, digitizer, backlight, CD. Ooh. There we go. Ooh, digitizer. I am a little worried about the bottom screen as there was a tiny bit of rust on that screw. Rust always seems to find its way to the bottom screen. Okay, motherboard's free. I'm gonna quickly give it an inspection. Like all the pins are looking good. It's just this charge port. It's missing the little plastic lip that's usually inside it. So if you jam a charger in there, it's just gonna bend those pins. Well, even if it doesn't bend the pins, the charger won't make a good connection because there's nothing pushing those pins down into the charger itself. I did kind of test these buttons. They work fine. Needs to be cleaned. Thing powered on, obviously, and it worked, so I don't have much issue. For now, I'll put this aside. Let me get the Wi-Fi card. Get with the motherboard. They're all together. I'm not losing anything. I hope to reuse... Yeah, there's a tiny bit of rust down there. Not much. I might have to remove this bezel in order to really clean down in there. That's gross. Buttons I'll set aside to put... I'll stick them in a big bag and clean them later. LED diffuser. Okay, bottom shell's completely disassembled. Now to get the top part. I would like to reuse the screen and the lens, so I'm gonna have to be extra careful. Okay. Hit the back shell up and come away. Other LED diffuser. Grab the little plate that goes over the camera and the microphone. Okay. Wi-Fi antenna. And the microphone. Pop the speakers off to get the grills and the spacer. Up the hinge mechanism. One of the fun parts. Gently pull it apart. Okay, the metal ring stuck on the top shell. Good. What I wanted it to do. Now it's going to be bridging these cables into the little channel. And that's free. Roll the ribbon cable into itself. Using this little metal ring to kind of hold the cables together and wound like that. To carefully pry the adhesive away. Now the screen is free, and just gently massaging it and a little bit of pulling. Since the cable will get caught on the shell, you kind of have to get at it at an angle. Got the hardware. Then I'll sort of partially reassemble this shell. Get it in my pile for cleaning. So these are good pieces. Those right there. I'm gonna take this hardware out real quick before I tuck everything into my pile. This is an all gold setup again. Nice. These are the only gold screws in the console. And it would, as though it would be nice if they color coded everything. That's probably a lot easier said than done. Get the volume button out. A little bit of rubbing alcohol to loosen up this here, holding down the ribbon cable. Okay, that shell's completely apart. I can, oop, almost forgot these. Now the shell's completely apart. Right. Metal piece. Really look at the shoulder buttons, give them a click. Feel good, they look good, they don't. Usually I'm more looking for if they're covered in rust, which these ones aren't, thankfully. Buttons I'll separate. I need to take the metal hardware away. These I don't need to clean because they're internal parts. These are the external parts that put aside. This is the battery door from that, so I'll also stick that aside. Okay. Now we are on to the charge port. All this. gonna remove power board and take off the Wi-Fi card. Get rid of the solder. Get my main iron heated up. Move stuff out of my way. Gonna need probably these. Where is my... Need this. Get my hot air station. Water in my sponge. Grab this, grab this. Grab these. And this. Grab my puny little helping hands. Outer flux. And a new charge port. I have to both bend and modify this charge port a little, as the way it's currently configured just won't sit on the board. A lot of these pieces need to be bent and snipped. Goes out 90 degrees. These 90 degrees. Then I'll cut them flush, or as close as I can with the side cutters. These down too as well. I learned last time that's impedes with the shell a little more than I originally thought. The charge port looks more like this. Fit a little better on the board. At least that's how it's intended. Grab my magnifying glass. Or microscope. I'm gonna have to configure this other scene a little. Oh, yes I will, okay. Oh, I didn't want to remove that one. Paste reference, there we go, okay. Um, what I'm going to want to do is add a little bit of my flux, or my solder. This is all fairly old solder already on these charge ports. I'm going to make this microscope image bigger on my screen so I can really kind of look at what I'm doing. Ooh, shaky. Bit bigger portion of my solder iron. There we go. Okay, have the one on the back to do. These two main posts right here. Wonderful. Now I can set up my helping hands and air gun these off. We'll try a lower temp at 300. Come on now. Oh, we're getting somewhere. I want to pull pads, so I gotta kind of be patient here. It's hanging on. There it goes. Charge port is off. So I'll grab my solder wick and suck up all of that solder. Just quickly grab the other side. Okay. Now I can just drop this charge port in and add a little bit of flux or add solder where I need it, which will be on all the main pins. What I want to kind of do is I'm going to have this a little off screen. I need to get it so the right spot. About right there. Also need to put pressure on it. If I rotate it a little like this, just using the edge of my mat, I believe it's about right there the pins need to sit. And then it's just a matter of grabbing my solder, adding a little bit to these pins on the back side. Okay, that's in. Yep, that looks like that went really well. I'll get back my microscope. Now I just have to get these soldered onto the pads. That pin was bent a little, but that shouldn't matter. That looks like nice and in there. All those points look secure. I'm going to add a little more on the back because I just sort of did just a little just to hold them into place. But at least this pin needs a little more, and it won't hurt to do a little more right there. There, I think that went very well. Turn off my tools here. Yep, I'm really happy with that. Okay. Get my microscope out of the way. Start shoveling this stuff out of the way as well. Okay, now I gotta hit the area with a lot of rubbing alcohol and Q-tips. Try and get up as much as that flux that I can. I only scorched the board a little. That's kind of good. Okay, that's probably about all I'll get with that. I'll grab my garbage toothbrush. Just give everything a scrub. Check and see if I got any flux inside the backlight connector. Sometimes it'll make its way in there and kind of gum it up. A little bit. But be careful not to accidentally pop it off. Try and get off some of these burn marks. So it looks a little better. It doesn't look bad, all things considered, but oh no! What I did not want to happen. You'll see here in a second. That. Not that big of a deal. It's not broken. But I do have to finesse it back on to get it underneath these 4 pins. Which be a little harder, especially when it does that. And you're patient, so careful. Not a death sentence. Essentially, I need to get the connector underneath these 4 upward pins. Like I only got those 2. I need to get all 4. This is usually where I'll look for an assistance with my sewing needle. To help lift them up just a little. I do this on the digitizer connectors sometimes. They'll just pop off. Happens. I am sticking my fingers inside Luxie, this piece of paper towel that I'm using, so I'm just gonna replace it real quick. My fingers keep dragging through the flux. Yeah. Where was I? That's the underside. I need to sort of come at it at a different angle so users can hold on to it a little better. Focus a little better. Oh, it's really just that last one that needs to come up just a little. Oh, careful, careful. Ah, so close. Yeah. Rotate it again. What are we looking like? Will it kind of... Ooh. Okay, so it's these two pins at the back, these two pins on the left. I usually come in connector as flat as I can for stick in. Sometimes I'll get the pins to go underneath it. Oh, I hope I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. I think right there is a crack. I think I may have broken this connector. We'll see. It's opening and shutting. Not gonna rule out that it's broken, but I'm gonna look at it a little closer here. Maybe I'm just seeing things. It was when I was putting sort of that last effort in putting it in, I thought I saw this part bend, which this type of rigid plastic does not bend. Okay, yeah. I don't see any crack, so I was just angle of the camera maybe. Cool. I am going to put the actually simulate it with the actual screen just to see what happens when it's actually under load. Because I would hate to put this all together only to put in the bottom screen and then the whole assembly just falling apart. I don't think it will. I have my camera really close, so it doesn't really give me much space to work with. I have to probably just move the motherboard into it. Oh, there is flux under there. I see it oozing up. I knew that would happen, but I'll try and flush it out a little better in a second. Yep, connector's holding. Okay, cool. Clean off this ribbon cable from that flux. Set it aside. Hopefully not repeat the same thing. I'll just get a unswab in there. Okay, charge port replaced. Lower screen backlight connector not broken. So I guess since I'm here, I'm just gonna go ahead and clean out the rest of these ports. Let's give the game card slot a quick wipe down. There was a spot near the headphone jack I wanted to get. Right here. And then of course the headphone jack and microphone port. There is a Sharpie on the top of this. Get rid of before it starts getting all over the place. Yep, microphone port looks good. I need to grab my little flossing tool to get the headphone jack. And I'll do this again before I start installing stuff, but I'm gonna hit these various ports with rubbing alcohol. Okay. So this motherboard, from the little bit that I tested, is in good shape. Charge port replaced. I am going to start taking notes on that actually, so don't forget. Taking notes meaning it's just a little slip of paper that I keep with these consoles so I can track any pairs. So I'm going to go off of the shell number. Oh. Pencil. Burgundy WW409499917. Create a section for battery life when I get to it. Charge port replaced. Get the shell apart. I guess the adhesive wasn't that strong, so just put some double-sided tape on. And begin putting this back together for a component test before I start putting it back in its shell. Since I'm in the unusual instance of where both screens are possibly good for me to use, I'm going to look at them a little closer and start sort of wiping them off, and if I actually want to use them. Mainly the top screen. The bottom screen is a lot easier to replace than the top screen. Kind of doing a quick cleanup here. So I'll go ahead and plug back in the bottom screen. And then I'll start putting in components that I'll be putting in the top screen. So grab the microphone. And the camera. I'm gonna have to wipe that camera down before I put it in. Okay. Also give me a chance to see if the charge port went well. Yeah, it looks real good. Cool. Now the top screen. Oh, come on now. Okay, I'm gonna turn off my lights for this so I can look at these screens a little closer, just to make sure there's nothing I'm missing color-wise, and if there's any sort of like deep scratches on it that can only be repaired by a replacement. Let me grab more rubbing alcohol. I'm gonna get my hot air station away from me. It's kinda, I'm bumping into it. Hopefully won't need it, as long as I didn't actually break that connector for the backlight. Yeah, color's good. Since these are not very often do I actually get to keep both of the screens together from an OEM console. Usually there's always something wrong. See right there, there's a okay, that's a piece of dust underneath the lens. There might be a couple specks of dust underneath this lens. In the same spot. Keeps losing connection with the battery. Definitely not the most ideal conditions. Okay, yeah, there is one little speck of dust right up here. Can't really see it. You can kind of see it. It's just a little tiny speck. Okay. I'm pretty happy with this top screen. I can't take that lens off until I get it into the actual top screen assembly. It'll be easier to deal with. I'm gonna test components. I don't have the shoulder buttons in, so it's gonna take me through the stupid tutorial. I keep forgetting about this. Yeah. Give myself a massive 4. Yeah. There we go. Both screens work. Cool. Sound microphone real quick. Gotta brush it off. La 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 la. Yep. Okay, I'll start prepping to get all this into the top shell. Cool. I'm very pleased. I haven't quite decided what I'll do with the bottom screen yet, but that all over here. the top screen, I'm going to wrap the ribbon cable just a little bit of Kapton tape. The intention of just to reinforce it a little, so it's less likely to tear on accident. Does make it a little harder to work with when pulling it through the hinge, but I would much rather that than having it tear on me while I pull it through the hinge. Because it does. I've done that a few times. Very, very expensive mistake. Okay. Just do one piece on the back. I'll very carefully cut little chunks in it. Kapton tape, that is. So then I can just end it over the ribbon cable. There. Not pretty, but what it will do is make these edges of the ribbon cable a little tougher. I am going to put a bit of Kapton tape right there on the end. Just a hair. I know I have some clear DSI shells that I'm going to have to put together. I won't be able to use this trick. On the clear shell, you'll be able to see the ribbon coiling and having ribbon looked all... Say, this ribbon doesn't look great when it has tape on it, but functionally speaking, it's better off with it than without it. Eh, need to line this up a little better. Putting it down too close to the pins. Trying to get as close as I can, but not actually on them. Eh, that over. I have to snip this part off. Close as I can without actually cutting it. That would be unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Okay, I'm happy with that. So the camera I said I was going to wipe off. Okay. I'm going to quickly inspect the rest of the shell just to make sure there's any dirt or grime that I missed. Did notice a little channel here. Quick wipe down. Inside the hinges. Looks pretty good. Then also the components for the top screen. The metal ring and the actual hinge mechanism. We wipe them off. The LED diffuser. I don't get to this part until a little later, but okay, I'm ready to start putting this together. Now the fun part. Of line the camera and the ribbon cable together. Try to shift the camera ribbon over to one side of the, or to the far end of the top screen ribbon cable. That's important when it comes to plugging it back into the motherboard. Because the connectors are a little offset. Not necessarily important right now. You can kind of shift them once you get them in, but bobby pin. Not perfect, but that should work. And just roll it up. This is more of an art than a science. Don't want to roll it too tight because you don't want to accidentally tear the cable. You don't want to not roll it too tight or else it won't go through. It did go through pretty easily. Usually it's not so much the top screen ribbon that gets caught on things, it's the camera ribbon that gets caught on things. And that went on very nicely. Okay. Keep the coil going, put the metal ring on. Then I'm free to uncoil it. Voila. Through, coil's good. What I'm going to do is get the camera module back in. That piece of conductive tape out of the way. Grab the microphone. Feed that through. Stick the microphone into its little channel here. Then I can put this plate back on. We'll keep the camera from kind of flailing about. Screwdriver, screwdriver, here you are. And I'll put this little piece of conductive copper on. I believe it's for grounding, but I'm actually not entirely sure. And then since that adhesive doesn't stick down very well once you take it off, I'm just going to grab a really thin piece of Kapton tape just to kind of try and hold it down a little better. Yeah. Start channeling in those stickers. No real science, just like it wants to go black or red than black. Okay. Cool. Getting my helping hands out of the way. I don't need them. Okay, let's do Wi-Fi antenna. That routed in nice and cozy. Hinge mechanism in. Doesn't matter which way. And it's the game of feeding everything back through the hinge and encouraging these ribbon cables to play along. Huh, there we go. And I'll grab my pick or pry tool to pop this hinge in. And I'll kind of do a test opening. Nice. Quick inspection of the glossy shell piece. LED diffuser. I can stick the camera in. And voila. Okay, now I'll get these cables routed. The microphone one's important because I don't have much cable to work with. If I don't route enough cable, it won't reach the actual plug on the motherboard. Okay, that's enough length. The Wi-Fi antenna I have a lot more slack with. Not really sure why they did this, but I won't complain. And I'll grab A little bit of Kapton tape just to hold these holes down. Okay, so now I want to do something with this bottom screen. This point right here, disconnected. I want to see if I can take off this bezel without taking the adhesive with it. It'll be a lot easier to clean without this bezel. If I can keep the adhesive on it, that's even better. Looks like it did. Oh. Okay, the adhesive is still there. Now it's just going to be using Q-tips and rubbing alcohol. Try and get as much of this up. It'll also give me a chance to really look at this bottom screen and see if it needs replacing. I don't think it does. A little scratched, but not that bad. Mmm. Yummy. I did note just a little bit of rust. Yeah, there's a touch here on the corner. Get as much of it as I can. Eh. A little scratch it up, but it will work. I'll test it to make sure that that's actually the case and there's no dead spots, but I have no reason to believe this touchscreen will not work. Okay, now for this bezel piece. Hmm. that in there, let it dry. We'll be able to reuse that adhesive. And while I wait, I'll grab buttons. Start, select, keypad, X, A, power button, Y. Membrane. Now before I install them, I'll just kind of brush them off real quick. Just catch any grody, if any, remains. No goober on this. Okay, now curve should be nice and tacky again. Sure is. Just noticing just to pick out any hairs I see before I actually sit down. Lower in the screen, starting from the little looped portion in the back. Am I crazy? No, I'm not. Try that again. Should do it. Okay, before I forget, ID, look at them, they look fine. Now the main guy, the motherboard. I was handling these ribbon cables, I'm just gonna wipe them off with alcohol and oils on them. I'll do the same with the bottom screen. Okay, now the up screen. Pinching any of the cables. The rescue laser ribbon. Okay, I'm gonna put a screw in both the power board and the board just to keep it in place while I do the camera. And I just so my buttons don't fall out. Camera, I open that console all the way so I get a little more back. LED. Backlight. Hyzer. These wires all nice and snuggy. Put in. And the antenna for the Wi-Fi card. All nice and routed. Put a couple more screws in just to make sure that it's snug. Especially along where I'm going to be pressing buttons. And before I go too far, I want to put this motherboard in my records. So under assembled, this is a new motherboard to me. This will be in Burgundy WW409499917 4949917. Okay. Motherboard 52060120U016 negative A22. US motherboard, I think it was 1.4.1U software. Then under fixed, I do charge port replaced. Yeah. I'm going to hit the shoulder button connectors one more time with just a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Quickly dry them off. Get them installed or plugged in. And I'll finally be to the point of testing. I'm just going to loosely sort of friction fit this together. Kind of giving it a feel. It really does. Feel like it's came together really nicely. I'm not noticing any like bulging. Looks like I could have probably went a little further out with the charge port. I did. This won't be an issue. That functionally is just more cosmetic than anything. What I'll do is put in the battery, secure it, and then test it with a charge cable. I grab the cable I have plugged in and coil it from the spider web of cables I have next to me. There. Moment of truth. Oh, that's interesting. Now this means I need to reflow either the solder joints on the main solder joints on the board. Maybe I didn't put enough heat into the board when I was putting that solder on. What I'm doing now is I'm holding the cable down. That means it's making better contact with the board. I've also had it where the F1 fuse on the board itself, as well as component EM1. For some reason those solder joints also break. So I just reflow them all. I'll do that right now. I'm not going to go far enough to remove the board completely again, but I can prop it up just to get these joints. I'll just reflow all of the connectors in the area. Let me get my solder iron turned on so I can start heating up. Make sure it's in the right spot. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll lift the board up. I'm gonna do the soldering while it's in the shell, which normally something I don't recommend, but what I'm doing, I'm not gonna be applying much heat. Gonna be enough to flow the solder on this side, and I'll have a barrier between it and the shell. Barrier being one of my poorly abused tar picks. I'll create an actual physical barrier so I won't melt anything. Get my microscope. That all set up and ready. Let me grab my main monitor here. So the components I'm mainly looking for are those two solder joints, which I thought those did pretty good. Maybe that one on the right didn't stick as well as I wanted it to. As well as around EM1. That will be kind of my goal here. So since this port, the one that's trailing off to that via, that's the one that has, that's the positive port. So Need to make sure that's nice and soldered down. Board. And I'm just gonna gently tap both sides of the fuse without accidentally melting any of my connectors. And I'm just gonna go around EM1. Just enough to liquefy the solder. Turn my iron around. One more spot. Okay. So what I'll do, if I get too really far ahead of myself, I'm gonna keep battery connectors back into the board, or plug the battery board back into the motherboard. If that worked. I'll know pretty quickly once I plug in the charger. I'm not gonna go putting this whole thing together. Enough that I can get a thing that can hold the battery. Kind of loosely holding this together. Moving the charger again. Oh, and solid orange light. So either I didn't solder that positive terminal on very well to the motherboard, or there was a broken solder joint on either the F1 fuse or component EM1. It was really looking to me like I didn't get that positive terminal on all the way. But it is not impossible that the solder joints are just bad on those two components. I guess I've never actually proved that, but every time I've reflown all those joints, I was able to revive chargers that acted like that. So now I can actually get this back together. Sort of do the same thing I was doing. I'll just put in enough screws into test. Get all the ribbons back plugged in. Okay, that is all together. Now we'll go back and ribbons back in. Shoulder buttons feel good with the shell attached like that. Good, good. The battery in. Have it Test the charger one more time, just a sanity check. Solid orange light. I wiggle it around. No problemo. And yeah, even though I don't have, the charge port is a little regressed, a little more than I would like it. It has no problem being plugged in and charged. That's just more, the positioning is just, frankly, just more aesthetic than everything. So, I kind of clean up my area here a little. Stuff out of my way. We'll need this. So, let's see what we got working with. So it turns on, and I'm just going to run basic testing protocol, just basically testing buttons. I know the camera and the microphone work. Now I need to test the face buttons. I'm going to do that with an R4 card, loading up different pieces of software. This is the Diagnose, or Diagno SE. This is what I use for primarily testing all of my buttons. This is a very good tool, especially for the shoulder buttons, which can be a little difficult to work with. I test the volume, and they work just fine. You can confirm that by me changing the brightness. Turn the volume down a little so I'm not hearing the song. Start select. Both shoulder button, the shoulder buttons are usually the ones I worry about the most. Those tend to be the most prone to failure, or the ones that are easily scooped up. Testing the directional, it's responding. So all I need to really test next is the touchscreen, which I'll use another piece of software for that. That is a piece of software I cannot pronounce. Yes, right, Reater something. But basically what this does for me is it gives me a complete pad for me to write on. You can do this in Flipnote Studio, but since I just recently factory reset this, I would have to go through the tutorial. I don't want to go through the tutorial. So I'm going to just draw a box around the edges. Like it probably just needs to be calibrated, but it is getting the entire edges. It's not, when the touchscreen has a dead zone in it, it'll create like a jagged bubble around where the dead zone is. Ooh, that's interesting. Just lost all touch functionality. Load that up again. Not impossible for that to be a software fluke. Strange. I don't think I've ever had that before. I'll have to keep an eye on that. Anyway, I'll just sort of do little circles. Looks good. Quickly run touchscreen calibration on it and just run it one more time. I don't like doing too much touchscreen activity while I don't have a screen protector on it. All I'm doing is just potentially scratching the screen more. And yeah, that looks really good. I guess the only thing I really want to test now, these are more just like making sure the components work. I want to test the game card slot. Now, when I test the game card slot, I just throw a bunch of shovelware games at it. I am going to just do a preemptive cleaning on it. I really need to take the sticker off of the back of this. No time like the present. Been refusing to use this game card because we put a sticker on the back. I think it's a GameStop sticker or something. Been meaning to pick it off, but you know, it's kind of a pain. There. Who would have thought I'd get a $15 game for free? Woohoo. I love stickers on top of other stickers. Fills my heart. Thank goodness, Nintendo stickers are very high quality. Okay. Here's my newly sticker-free game card in the game card slot. Now in this case, I'm going to grab some 99% rubbing alcohol. Don't have that much of it, but I'd rather use that as it will dry faster. Rate the pins and then just take it in and out a few times. Usually the rubbing alcohol will kind of make the mechanism sort of freak out. Once it dries, it'll go back to normal. One more time. Sometimes I have to help it out. Okay. I need to let that dry for a second. Right, I'll throw my shovelware games at it. Firstly, see what I got here on my stack. Crafting Mama, which almost all of my consoles can read without issue. Yep. Jiggle the cart side to side. Okay. Under pets, which my consoles can sometimes have a very hard time reading. This is kind of my, if a console can read it, it can read anything. Perfect. Other games, Bejeweled 3. No issue. SpongeBob game. Perfect. Ooh. Okay. And Dog Whisper. All right. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay. I'll go ahead and put the remaining screws on it, and I'm done. We'll go into a pile where I will do further testing, get screen protectors on, give it a final sort of wipe down before actually getting it ready for sale. Very pleased. This was a really easy fix. Okay. Remaining motherboard screws in. The silver screw goes on the top. Plethora of silver screws. Okay, make sure that the power cables are routed in this little panel. That all pressed in. Back, screw in. Was this one that had a little bit of rust? I might want a little more time. I don't have to necessarily all off, but just enough that I don't see orange anymore. I may end up doing is just pile to it. But wow, I look away from our moment and it completely vanishes on me. That wasn't this one. Oh, this one's shape. Accidentally just straight up drop it. Oh, it's right here. Yes, I did. Okay. Hey, it's not perfect, but it's better. Not rusted enough that I need to worry about the head disintegrating. It's just a little bit of surface rust. Not enough for me to really worry about. Last but not least, little fella. And the 4 top screen. Alright, I think that'll be all that I do for this guy right now. When I do my further testing, it'll just be more of the same, testing game card slot, SD card slot, buttons, and all that. And I'll have to put on screen protectors, which I'm not going to do down here because I'm in a very dusty environment. I have a special space. I think for now, I'll call this good. One came together very nicely and should clean up very nicely.